So we know that if we have a true table and it has P's and Q's, two statements, two basic statements, you got 4 lines, right? True, 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 false, false, true, false, false. Well, the thing about a third statement is, and we're doing a truth table for it, let's just kind of think here. First of all, what we're going to be looking at. So we've got a P, we've got a Q statement, and then we've also got a third different one, not a negation of one of those, but a third distinct statement, call it R, okay? So it's 3 different statements, P, Q, and R. So for one thing, of course, that adds to our left side of the truth table, it adds another column to it because we got to throw in that R, right? Well, and so if I'm doing a truth table, remember the idea is I want to list every let me look at the 2 table one to start. So if I 2 statement one. So if I've got P and Q, I've got true, 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 false, false, true, and false, false. That's the list of all possibilities that P's and Q's could have interacting true and false together, right? All right, so, I mean, we can look at it different ways. You know, we've got a line that has 2 trues, we've got a line that has 2 falses, and then we've got the ones that have 1 of each. We've got a true, false, but then you can switch around to false, true. We've got to do the same thing for the 3 statement truth table. In other words, think about all the possibilities that we could have where P, Q, and R have different truth values. With me there? Okay. So, let's start with the most obvious one. Most obvious one would be, I'm going to need to have all 3 true, right? So that is probably where I would start. We're not actually going to, okay, and of course the last one's going to be all 3 false, but let's wait to get there. Another way we could look at this truth table, two statement truth table, is look at the pattern here. For the Q's, I'm alternating true, false, right? And then for the P's, I do 2 trues and 2 falses. Well, the pattern for the 3 statement truth table is very similar. However, there's just more. There's more lines. It turns out instead of 4, there's going to be 8 lines. Okay? So it doubles. Every time you add a statement, it doubles the amount of lines you're going to need for your truth table. Okay? All right. So playing off this, knowing that it's 8 lines, and then this one is true, false. Let's do the same thing for R here. Let's alternate true, false, until we have 8 lines. Is that 8? 8 lines. All right? Now, for the middle one here, the Q, I'm going to do the same thing I did for this one, which is 2 trues, 2 falses. So I'm going to do 2 trues, 2 falses until I have 8. 2 trues, 2 falses, and then 2 more trues, 2 more falses. Okay? Guess what I'm going to do for the P's? Well, it wouldn't work out quite if I did 3 and 3, 4 and 4. 4 trues, 4 falses. So that makes 8. All right? So let's notice what that does as far as the different possibilities. All right, so yeah, I've got my 3 trues. I got my 3 falses. All right? What else could I have? Well, I could have 2 trues and 1 false. But 2 trues, 1 false can do that way. It can be that way, which is different, right? The false is in the middle. Or I could have the false at the front, which is actually that one. So I've got 2 trues and 1 false. And then I've also got 1 true, 2 falses, don't I? 1 true, 2 falses, but that can happen this way, or this way. Is there any others you can think of? I've got all 3 true. I've got 2 trues, 1 false, 1 true, 2 false. and all 3 false. That's it, isn't it? That covers the range that, all right. So that's a pretty, instead of having to think through all that, if you go through that sort of cycle there, or pattern, that'll get you your 8 lines. And then we can do then the rest of it is just like we did before. You're just going to do the ands and the ors as accordingly. All right? Good? All right, so let's do one here that has P's, Q's, and R's in it. 3 statements. Maybe we'll do 2. Okay. All right, so let's do a truth table for P and parentheses Q or not R. So again, we've got 3 we've had 3 parts before. However, in this case, we've got 3 different statements. It's not just P's and Q's. I've got P, Q, and R, and so that triggers me to think, well, I got to do one like this. And so if you've got P, Q's, and R's, this is the way it starts. This is the way it looks. So let's redo that again. All right, so how did it work? P, and I would always, I mean, you don't have to list them in this order, but I would, that's the way the book will, because if you notice in the book, the answer is just the final column, right, that you get. So so this is the way they would line it up in the book there. So let's do that. So how did it work? So the R's we did, I don't know why we start with the R's, but that alternate, true, false, so you get 8, 4 different times there. Then for the Q, 2 by 2, 2 trues, 2 falses. And then last but not least, the P's, which is 4 of each. 4 trues, 4 falses. Okay? Yes? All right, so over here then we put the P and parentheses Q or not R. Line them up that way. And like I do it the same way I did the two statement ones. Underneath P, put what the truth values of P are, which in this case would be 4 trues, 4 falses. Make them a little smaller, but try to keep them lined up. It's probably easier for you because if you have line paper there, but try to keep them straight. And then under Q, just write the Q, copy the Q column, which is 2 trues, 2 falses, alternating. And then the last one is the not R, so that's the negation of R. It's the opposite of the R's, so false, true, false, true. False, true, false, true. Everybody with me so far? Yes? Okay. So, going through here, yeah, like we've always had, parentheses first. So we do the inside the parentheses one first. Common theme in mathematics. Do parentheses first, so what's that one? The V. It's OR. How does OR work? One of them's true, OR is true, right? So true or false is true. True or true is true. False or false? That one's false. False or true? True. True or false? True. True or true? True. False or false? False. False or true? True. Mark those out so we don't get confused here. Just the middle one. Is that okay? All right. So now we take that and combine it with that one. And how are we going to combine that one? Those two. Well, the symbol there is the upside down V, or looks almost like a capital A. But, yeah, that's the and, isn't it? And how does and work? To be true, and both of them have to be true, right? For and to be true, both of them have to be true. So we've got in line 1 is true and true, so that one is true. True and true, that one is true. True and false, False, because both of them, both of them have to be true to be true. We've got another true and true. We've got a false and true, false, false and true, false, false and false, false, and then false and true, also false. So that would be our answer. Yeah, so if you're looking at the answers in the back of the book, odd answers are in the back of the book there. Yeah, they would list them out in that order like that. All right, question or concern? Try one more here and then we'll move on. All right, so let's do the truth table for this one. It's not P and R in parentheses and then or. That with not Q. Not P and R parentheses, or that with not Q. So yeah, the first little point here is, you see you got PRQ, and so you can put PRQ if you want to, that's fine, but to keep it consistent, usually they just put them in this order, even though the order is different actually in the statement. To be consistent, they usually have P, Q, R in the same order, alphabetical order, I guess you might say. Is it wrong to put them in different order? No. That's the way we usually try to do it. All right, and so same thing as we did before. It alternates the R, true, false, true, false. 8. You have 8. 4 times. And then the Q, 2 by 2. True, 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 false. True, true, false, false. True, true, false, false. And then P also has its patterns, 4 trues and then 4 falses. And that'll cover the range of all the values there. Okay? All right, so then let's put the statement here. So the first thing we have is the not P, squiggly line P's, that's negation of P. So that means P is going to be the opposite of what it is here. So it'd be false, 4 falses and then 4 trues. And then the R is just a copy of the R, so it's alternating true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. And then, last but not least, we've got the squiggly Q there, so the opposite of Q. 2 trues, 2 falses, then 2 trues, 2 falses, and 2 trues again. Does that look okay? All right, so then parentheses first, so we do these two in this case first. There's the V, so that's the or. Or is true if one of them is true. So you got false or true, that is true. False or false, that is false. False or true, true. False or false, false. True or true, true. True or false, true. True or true, true. And last but not least, true or false is true. So that's just more practice for the or. Is that okay? Yeah. All right. I wrote the wrong one. Oh, right. Let's just do this. All right. Let's change that to or. So I don't have to redo all that. All right, so or, so the other one's or too, or I guess we could do and. Let's change that to and. Sorry. Is that okay? Not gonna throw stones at me for that. My bad. All right, so let's and that one. Change that to and. So we get another practice with and. So and has to both be true to be true. So we got true and false is false. False and false is false. True and true is true. False and true is false. True and false is false. True and false is false. True true and true, so we got true and true, so the last two are true. There you go. Just that is the answer. All right. I probably should have gone back to my original because you won't be able to do that on the test. I'll just change that. Oh well. All right, any question? Good to go? One other thing here to mention, and I think the question, it hasn't asked it yet, but neither one of these is really a good example for this, but if I have, let me see if I can get one here. Let's go back. This twofold purposes, I guess. All right, so let's say this one has 3 parts, but does that one need the 8 lines? It doesn't need 8 lines because it doesn't have an R, does it? You only need the 8 lines here, the longer one, if you have P, Q's, and R's, or 3 different statements. So that's one point here to be made. I think I can make another point on this. Yeah, so this one, we really just have P's and Q's, and so we're back to just 4. True, 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 false, false, true, false, false. And so that's one point. I think it'll make sure I got them correct here. Okay. All right, so let's see what happens. So we got P or not Q, so P is just copy the P column, true, true, false, false. Not Q is the opposite of the Q, so that'd be false, true, false, true. And then Q is true, false, true, false. So, yeah. You don't have to use 8 lines. I don't think you'd want to use 8 lines. Could, but you just don't have to. All right. So let's OR those together, right? Both of them are OR. So true or false is true. True or true is true. You only have to have one to be true. To be true on OR. False or false is one that's false, and then false or true is true. Yeah, so here's what happens when I go over to the next one there. OR those together, right? True or true is true. True or false is true. And false or true is true. And true or false is true. So I wind up with all truths. And that was the other thing I was going to mention here, is if I have a statement, okay, that is always true, it's called a tautology. T-A-U-T-O-L-O-G. So if you see that term tautology, it just means you have all truths on your truth table. So this is an example of a tautology right here. That one's always true. There's no time, any combination of true and false, P and Q, when it's false. It's always true. All right? So we go back to this one. Is this one a tautology? No, it's got more falses than it does true, as a matter of fact. But yeah, if their truth table is always true, it's a tautology. I think there was one actually. Was there one in the homework that was all truths? You remember? I think there was, yeah. But it didn't ask you. But the reason I mention it here is because I think in the instructions of the homework, on some of these homework, it'll ask you about tautologies. And that's really all it is. Okay, it's when it's always always true. All right?